All right. Good morning to our colleagues on the West Coast. My name is Allie Snell, and I'm the Vista Marketing and Outreach Director, and I'm here with part of our Marketing, Outreach, and Recruitment team to give you this presentation today. I've been working with AmeriCorps Vista for a little over 2.5 years now, and I actually served as a Vista volunteer from 2003 to 2004 in Gallup, New Mexico. I'm going to turn over to my colleague Ann to introduce herself.
Thanks, Allie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ann Oti, and I'm a program associate for the VISTA program. I do a lot of the criminal history checks. I served at the VISTA in 2015 to 2016 in Harford County, Maryland.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Matthews. I'm the Alumni and Employer Team Lead, and I was a VISTA in the mid-90s at a domestic violence shelter in Lake Charles, Louisiana.
So there you have it, our dream team here, and we're really excited to talk to you all today about your best recruitment season ever.
All right, so to get us warmed up, we want to know what makes a great VISTA member. If you're a brand new project, think about what skills and experiences you believe would make a successful VISTA member. Please enter your ideas in the chat box and make sure you send it to all participants. We want your comments to be visible to everyone, so please be sure to enter them in the chat panel and not the Q&A panel further down the screen. If you're on a mobile device, you will find the chat feature at the bottom of the participant panel.
All right, so we'll give folks a few minutes to respond to the skills and experiences that they think great VISTA members possess. All right, and I'm seeing some great answers come in. We have adaptability, resiliency, coachability, flexibility, a lot of flexibility, high emotional intelligence, very driven. Yeah, seeing a lot of motivation, flexibility. I think flexibility is the most, what do you guys think? Do you think that's the most common theme?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. Yep.
Passionate about indirect service, I like that. Community-minded, awesome.
Mindfulness, I like that one too.
Yeah. Excellent, outgoing, great. So, and I think you sing resilience too, excellent. Because all of us former VISTAs know there's some real challenges to VISTA. There's some highs and there's some lows, and there's some really amazing times and challenging times. So having resiliency is great. And willingness to take charge of the project. Excellent. We'll give you guys just another minute. Keep adding your suggestions and your thoughts here. Okay, cool. So just keep those thoughts and those ideas in the back of your head. Oh, good, culturally sensitive. I was hoping to see that one. And results-oriented. So keep, we're going to move on a little bit, but I want you to keep thinking through this, keep thinking about these skills and experiences, and we're going to reference back to them in a little while. So why don't we turn it over to Liz?
All right. So we are pleased to offer this webinar series in two parts. So this week we will cover the fundamentals of planning and outreach. And mark your calendar, in 2 weeks we will dive into specific marketing techniques and tips. So again, in 2 weeks on Wednesday, February 28th at 4 p.m., join us for part 2 of 2, Marketing Your Opportunity Listing. So let's take a look at the session goals. Today's goals for our session, we are going to help you develop a solid foundation for effective recruitment. We're going to build a recruitment strategy targeted to your needs and help you apply key recruitment techniques and activities. So with that, I will turn it back over to Allie.
Great. So for our new folks, you might not have seen this sort of process yet. For our older folks who've been through the supervisor's orientation, you've probably seen a version of this. But we're going to talk about we look at the AmeriCorps VISTA recruitment process not so much as a cycle, but as sort of a flow. And we are developing a lot of materials this year to really help you get through all 5 steps of what we call the recruitment process. And that's the planning and all the way up to selecting the candidates for service and getting them into a PSO or a virtual member orientation. Just so you all know, to accompany our two-part series in Recruitment Bootcamp will be the new Guide to Vista Recruitment. This is a document that's in the final stages of review here at headquarters, and will be available sometime in the next 2 weeks. Of course, if you want to know more about all the topics we discussed today, after today's session, you can check out this Guide to Recruitment. It goes deeper into all of the topics and all 5 steps of the Vista recruitment process. I should say that this guide, of course, isn't so much of a manual as it is a roadmap to help you get to where you're going. So kicking off today's discussion, we'll focus on step 1 and part of step 2. All of the remaining steps, as I mentioned, are outlined and will be covered in depth in the forthcoming Guide to Recruitment. So, of course, stay tuned. We'll let you know when that's ready. All right, so like any structure, you have to start with a strong foundation. It's really important when you're gearing up for recruitment to pay attention to the basics. A lot of people, because they're pressed for time or other reasons, ignore the foundational aspects of their program before they head out to recruit. A lot of times because you guys know your stuff better than anyone else, and sometimes you forget that the things that you know aren't obvious to an external audience. My recommendation is you capture all the information we will discuss in the next couple of slides in a document somewhere or in some sort of format that you have handy. Then you'll have all the pieces to put together your different aspects of your recruitment strategy. So for those of you who are new, those of you who've been around, you obviously know this, but there are generally 2 foundational recruitment components to every VISTA site: the volunteer assignment description and the opportunity listing that goes with each VAD. So let's break down the steps to get to your baseline recruitment information. You first have to be able to identify the what, who, when, where, and why of your project. Okay, so let's start with the what. What is the desired impact of your VISTA project or projects? As you craft your opportunity listing and other recruitment materials, you should be able to answer the what of your project. The what, as I mentioned, is the desired impact, the positions you are recruiting for. And the what is really informed by your volunteer assignment description, or VAD. And in some cases, it's informed by your project application. So this is taking it back to the very beginning. Why did you want to get a VISTA in the first place? And what do you hope this VISTA or VISTAs will do? With a thoughtfully crafted VAD, you should have a full understanding of the types of skills and experiences you're looking for in a VISTA member, which will later inform the who component of recruiting, which I'll talk about in a second. So for example, if you have the desired impact of your project in mind, and that would be something like, for example, the end of this year, I want to increase volunteers to my mentoring program by 100%. Well, that's a desired outcome, and you can begin to formulate the skills and experiences you're looking for in an applicant that will help you achieve that outcome. So that's where we go to the who. This leads us to the who. Who are you actually trying to recruit? Are you looking for recent college graduates or students, retirees? Are you specifically looking to fill local individuals in your spot? Or maybe you're looking for a diversity of background and experiences. I certainly hope you are. Let's go back to your what. If you're looking to find someone to help recruit volunteers for an after-school STEM mentoring program, perhaps you want someone who's worked with children or youth, either as a previous job or volunteer position. Maybe you want someone with a business degree to help formulate strategic plans. Or perhaps you are more broadly looking for someone who is willing to go and serve in a very isolated rural area, and that person just possesses the right attitude. So if you remember back a few minutes ago, we talked about the skills and experiences you thought made an ideal VISTA. Well, this is where you really lay those out. Would you know what you're looking for if you found it? And I'm going to go back to some of the words you guys, I wrote down some of the terms that I saw, and interestingly enough, I didn't see what I would consider to be a lot of quote-unquote hard skills. I didn't see, I want someone with an accounting degree, or I want someone who has 5 years of experience working with at-risk youth. Instead, I saw a lot of what I would call soft skills or social skills. So I think the most common one I saw was flexibility, adaptability, being community-oriented, resilient, motivated, results-oriented, culturally sensitive and culturally aware. This is great that those are the things you're looking for. Of course, how are you going to go out and find those people? And again, would you know what you were looking for? How would you know if you found them? So we'll help you drill down to think about how you would want to go out and find these people who embody these great qualities. So let's move on to the when. I will say it again and again, in recruitment, timing is everything. You should really think of recruitment as a year-round period, where if you aren't actively recruiting, you are probably planning and setting the stage for your new vistas to arrive, or you're supporting your current vistas. Just like how teachers work year-round by spending some of the summer months planning for their incoming classes, you really won't have any recruitment dead time. Of course, many of you may be wondering about the timing of different recruitment tasks. As a general rule of thumb, the more advance notice you can give yourself, the better. Part of why we have this training in February is to gear you up for the majority of programs that exist in the VISTA world that are looking to place volunteers in the summer. About 70% of all of our VISTA projects start their onboarding sometime between June and August. So that's why we do this now in February. Of course, another thing to consider as well is that the bulk of people who are looking for opportunities to VISTA are in fact college seniors or recent college graduates. Many seniors want to have their post-graduation plans nailed down as soon as possible going into their last semester of college. So even if you're not going to start for another couple of months, the sooner you can capture some of these higher performing people, the better. Of course, just to give you a sense of when we receive the bulk of our applications, let's go to the data on the next slide. So hopefully you guys can read this. I know that I don't pay attention so much to the numbers because it's hard to read them, but the lines represent the count of applications to VISTA opportunity listings by month from fiscal year 2012 to this past fiscal year 2017, which ended in September 30th. Interestingly enough, the all-time high in the last 5 years was in FY 2012, which is represented by the dark blue line, where we got the highest number of overall applications. The lowest was FY 2016, represented by the white line, and then the bright red line is last year's application count. So we are actually on an upward trend. In fact, we had 14% more applications to opportunity listings in FY 16 comparative to FY 17. Now, I also would say we had 8% more applicants to applicants in general between FY 16 and FY 17, because as you know, a person can apply to multiple listings. So we're on the up and up. But as you can see from this graph, right around the middle end of February is when we start picking upwards to our peak recruitment and onboarding season. This is actual applications. This isn't applicants accepted. This is just people submitting applications. And so it peaks in May. I think that's a little late for a lot of our projects, but the timing really drives everything here. So that's just to give you some idea as to what we're doing. Okay, let's move on. All right. And now finally, the where. In recruitment, you need to, the one saying we say a lot of the times in recruitment is, meet people where they're at. It's a tenet of what I call active recruitment. And active recruitment means you have to go. You have to get up and go and find these people, whether it's in the virtual or physical space. People, if you build it, they don't necessarily come. Are people going to Craigslist nowadays to find a job? Well, some might, but a lot of them probably aren't. Where are they hanging out? They're on social media. They're on LinkedIn. Even in really rural areas. We hear a lot about how challenging it is to recruit people in really rural areas. But in our experience, everybody's on social media of some sort. Now, just to give you an idea, if you travel around your region for work, which I'm sure many of you do, always bring a flyer or a pass card with you that includes information about your program and your current or future VISTA vacancies. I mean, just have something in your car at all times. You never know when you're going to meet someone who may know someone who's interested. We're going to talk about specific recruitment strategies in a minute, but in terms of where you should be recruiting, you should have both a virtual as well as in-person presence. That is just the reality of where we are today. Now, Liz and Ann are going to go ahead and give you tips on what information is critical to share with an external audience and how you can promote your brand in the digital and physical spaces. So take it away, Liz.
All right. So while we are going to provide deeper insights to marketing your opportunity listings later on, these are general recommendations of what to include when writing out promotional language on your website, in your opportunity listings, and in other places. So this really is the basic information that should be included whenever you are describing your opportunity listings to an outside audience. So taking a look at this list, obviously you want accurate start and end dates for the position. You want to make sure that the contact information for your organization is listed so they know where they would be working potentially. Go ahead and include the living allowance, and you can find the exact amount for your location on the campus. You want to make sure that the terms and conditions of service are clear. You want to be upfront with the benefits. That's often a selling point, so including the Ed Award, non-competitive eligibility, health benefit, and so forth. And then if you are able to offer any extra benefits, like perhaps you're able to subsidize the housing or you have transportation subsidies or even gym passes, all of those things are really helpful to include and may attract your candidates. So the next thing that we want to keep in mind is writing from a sales perspective. So when writing about your opportunities for an external audience, like applicants, you want to make sure to use language that makes sense to a general audience. So put yourself in the shoes of your target audience. What do you think they want to hear? They want to know about the impact they could potentially have. They want to know the results of what might happen if they take this position. You also want to make sure you reference the technical skills that are to be used or obtained during service. And then something that's really important, we all are guilty of it, but avoid your jargon. We all have our own internal language, but putting it on an opportunity listing, that's not the time or place. Also avoid using acronyms. We also have some examples in this chart of our most common service world terms and what you can use instead so that the concepts are more generally understood. So, for example, instead of capacity building, you might want to say organizational development. Instead of indirect service, you can say professional or office setting. That way they know they're not going to be mucking and gutting a house. Instead of fundraising and development, you can be very specific and say grant writing and partnership development.
And this is Allie. I'll just interject one thing. It's not to say that you shouldn't talk about the terms and conditions of business service and the fact that it is indirect. We just are suggesting, in fact, we highly encourage that you're very upfront with your potential candidates about, living at the poverty level, specifically what the wages they'll receive through the living allowance. But, when you're just initially describing business service to someone, the word indirect service isn't going to make sense to anybody outside of you guys, us, and CNCS. So that's where we say, to distinguish VISTA from other, traditional volunteer opportunities where you're getting your hands dirty, so to speak, mention that it's really more of a professional office setting, 9-to-5 type of environment, if that's the case.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about your web presence. At a minimum, your VISTA project should either have a web page, a social media presence, or ideally both. When you're crafting your web presence, make the benefits like the Ed Award and living allowance prominent. Have you had VISTAs at your site before? Make sure to share those testimonials of current and former members, and don't forget to include photos. List the type of work. Is the member going to be doing grant writing, social media, fundraising, etc.? And something really neat to include is a video. Have a 2-minute video highlighting the work of your project. Get out there and film a project with a few AmeriCorps VISTA members narrating what the program means to them. You already have a great brand identity, and it's always important to rep the VISTA brand as well. We made it easy for you. So check out nationalservice.gov/VISTA outreach for all of your branding and recruitment resource needs. You can find downloadable flyer templates that you can edit to create your own marketing materials. You can access high-quality branded photos and videos for promotional use. And you can also order recruitment gear to give out at events, including brochures and posters.
Great, thank you, Anne. And hopefully some of you have already ordered your gear for the year. We've offered the opportunity for us to create recruitment kits. If you haven't done that, we can send you the link as well to order your kit, which includes all the items that you'll need. And definitely we will get back to you with some other questions. We'll just pause for a second because we got a question in the chat from Marissa. And I'll just read that. And this is pretty informal. We really want this to be as informative for you all, so we definitely want to make sure that this is useful. So we'll just pause when we see a good question. And this one was about writing from a sales perspective. I think those suggestions are helpful. Are these suggestions based on messaging research or based on observation? And yes, so to answer your question, Marissa, we have done some research on the opportunity listing. It's more qualitative research, but we've done qualitative research on all the opportunity listings that were put out there in a given year, and we looked at the ones that were the most popular. We also have done, between a number of us here, we have done a ton of writing and a ton of marketing writing, so we've sort of combined both the best practices of the opportunity listings that we noticed were the most popular with just general marketing, sort of marketing language, as well as how to sort of translate the Vista experience to an external audience. So we also have performed, last year we did a number of marketing research studies to see how the Vista brand resonated with our target audience, and that's so it's sort of a combination of all of those things. So thank you, great question. We'll add a recruitment link to the chat. It's actually a SurveyMonkey, and I will make sure to add that at the end of the presentation so that folks can order their recruitment kits. Excellent. And Krista, we're glad you like yours. And of course, if you end up running out of stuff, just, you can always order some more if you're out there doing a ton of recruitment. So I'm going to jump back to the presentation here, but again, if you guys have some really good questions, like Marissa's question that's really timely, don't hesitate to put in the chat. So now that we've showed you sort of the elements of a solid foundation, let's discuss strategy. I like to generalize recruitment in terms of both the art and the science of recruitment. The idea of recruitment being both an art and a science is really to illustrate that the art is all about the relationships you're able to cultivate with potential applicants, as well as people such as influencers, gatekeepers, and other stakeholders. The science is really the tactics and techniques that can set you up for recruitment success. I want to stress the caveat that there is no one formula for successful recruitment, and most of the suggestions we're going to give you in this presentation are based on my own professional experience recruiting for AmeriCorps Vista as well as another national volunteer program, the Peace Corps. So take them with a grain of salt. The art of recruitment. The art is all about cultivating and maintaining relationships with prospective candidates, key influencers, and the like. When I say influencers, I'm really referring to any persons or entities that will help you gain access to a group of potential applicants. So think someone like a college professor or the head of a social organization. They may not be someone who's going to apply directly to your program, but they certainly hold the keys to you accessing a greater pool of potential applicants. Now, before you go out and start talking to your people, remember we told you you need to have your foundation in place. We just discussed that. Inevitably, once you start telling people about your program and how great it is, they will have basic questions and will want to know precisely where to sign up. Hopefully you have all that stuff already written down somewhere. And of course, we always encourage you to find an easy way to guide any interested applicants to the myamericorps.gov/portal. Or just the My AmeriCorps portal, so where the opportunity listings live. Now, in developing these relationships, consistency is key. Once you've begun to form a relationship with either influencers or applicants, they will expect you to keep in touch and to stay on message. And so really, recruitment, the art of recruitment is about customer service and sales. A lot of folks don't want to hear this, as you most likely didn't get into the nonprofit world to become a salesperson. But whether or not you are recruiting new Vista volunteers or donors for your program, it is all about sales. That means you have to maintain a professional and upbeat demeanor and be available to address questions and inquiries as you're able to by interested candidates. As we said earlier, meeting your applicants where they're at. Now, I'm not suggesting you stay up all night, every night, and tweet responses to people, but, just be available, at least during business hours. Now, especially if you're an intermediary project, or if you're a sub-site, if you're an intermediary, you might receive a ton of applications, and you may not have time to sort through all of them, depending on how you run your program. And just to give you an idea, last year, one project in Hawaii received over 1,100 applications for 14 slots. That's a ratio of 78 applications per slot. So we know some opportunity listings may be more popular than others. Even though there were 1,100 applicants, we encourage you to go through all of the people that didn't make the cut and, just make sure that you let them know that they weren't accepted. That way they're freed up so they can go look elsewhere. A best practice is, if you have the ability to and the time, to message them to go back to the Vista opportunity listings and search for another option. And finally, I'll just put it out there, recruitment doesn't just happen. It does require thoughtful planning, preparation, and effort, as you will see here. Okay, so let's go and talk about the key contacts. We talked about managing those relationships. For the purposes of this training, I'm going to divide recruitment strategies into two categories: college or college campus-based recruitment and community-based recruitment. So I'm going to talk about the contacts you will need to cultivate in these two groups, and just to give you a few ideas. Again, we have a lot more ideas in the forthcoming guide to recruitment, but this is just a sample. Now, here's a good list of just key college campus contacts you should have. If you don't already have contacts with any of these groups, start thinking about doing cold calls or reaching out to them directly. In my experience recruiting, forming alliances with any entry point on a college campus can bear fruit, even if the person you know isn't affiliated with a department that directly works with students. So maybe you know a professor in the mathematics department who happens to be a Vista alum. Even if you know that you might not be recruiting a ton of students from that professor's class, they could still give you an in or a link to another organization on campus, or to the Career Services Office or a multicultural center, for example, if you're unable to, get an inroad by doing cold calling. I will say most universities, I would say start with the Career Services Office, because most universities are beyond thrilled that employers, such as yourself, would want to reach out to their students and offer them a position after graduation. So when you talk up the unique and life-changing aspects of Vista and how it's a great competitive program that provides all these wonderful benefits, and you're serving your community while making a difference and earning money for towards student loans, I mean, these are all great things, and most Career Services Offices would be thrilled to message out your opportunities on behalf of their students. Okay. Community contacts. In a way, these might actually be easier for you. Chances are you already have built-in contacts with these different kinds of networks just by virtue of the work you do. Think about the organizations and communities you work with currently. And you probably know someone that fits the bill. You probably know alums in your area. You probably do work with civic leaders and civic organizations or the local chambers of commerce. And hopefully you work with other service programs in the area or their recruiters. Keep in mind, these are organizations and communities that you work with currently, and keep in mind, as a matter of policy, the VISTA program does strongly encourage recruitment directly from the communities being served. So, if you're working with a mentoring program, for example, and you end up meeting some of the graduates of this program who are now off, graduating from college, the former mentees, I mean, they might be great people to recruit. I know of a program in New Mexico that does this brilliantly, where they actually recruit, I've seen them recruit for VISTA service, former beneficiaries of the program that they're looking to support. So again, a lot of people are doing this already, but just keep in mind that's always an untapped place to go, or you can always go back to these places for recruitment. So I'm going to turn it over to Ann to talk a little bit more about how to manage these great relationships, and then we'll dive into the tactics.
Thanks, Allie. So you all are probably well-versed in how to manage relationships, but may be stumped with where to start regarding managing potential recruitment relationships. Well, but just like any other relationship, here are some tips. If you don't have any key contacts, consider hosting an informal networking session. When I was in Vista and in college, I didn't host any networking sessions, but I went to as many community meetings as I could, from Kiwanis, or Circle K, which is the college Kiwanis group, to Chamber of Commerce meetings. Anytime there was an invite to my project site, I went and I told everyone I could about Vista and my project. And it actually led to a lot of success. Not all organizations were able to help our project, but individuals in those groups were able to connect me to other people who were beneficial to the project.
Great.
And I'll send that back to you, Allie.
That was a great example. So, you never know in any situation where you might have an opportunity to not just talk about services being rendered, but potentially recruit people for your Vista service. All right, so we talked a bit about managing relationships and kind of give you some tips on how to get started. So let's talk about how to do the work. So the Science of Recruitment is all about this: setting goals, identifying strategy using data, and setting specific targets for recruitment. As we mentioned earlier, you guys have some really great qualities that you're looking for in potential applicants and, of course, Vista members. And always be realistic about the applicants you could potentially attract to your program. I would imagine that a lot of what you guys are looking for those are realistic things to look for. The challenge will be sussing out those kinds of qualities in a behavioral-based interview. Again, we won't be doing a webinar on how to conduct interviews this go-around, but we have some really great questions and tips in the forthcoming guide to recruitment. So again, you'll have some reference for that. Targeting is an essential component of marketing and recruitment. You don't have the time or the funds to simply conduct general awareness campaigns for the whole public. You do have specific positions to fill. So, keep that in mind, and we're going to talk a lot more about targeting and marketing in our next session in 2 weeks. Of course, deadlines are also super important. We are driven by deadlines. Our PSOs are driven by deadlines. Our core business is driven by deadlines. Hopefully all of this is nothing new, but these are things to really keep in mind. Recruitment is deadline-driven. It's not just deadline-driven in that you have to meet certain, PSO deadlines, but that if you're unable to fill and you have to keep kind of promoting your program well past the date that you wanted to start, it could just cause a lot of confusion for any potential applicants. So again, it's all about the deadlines. All right, so let's dive into some of the strategies. And again, we're going to separate it by college, and then we'll talk about community strategies. So as we discussed, I still will say the first step is to build key contacts with folks from the Career Services Department at any given institution. These people can open the doors to many options. You should feel empowered to drive the conversation when you do connect with a college Career Services office and ask for specific things, such as the ability to get physically in front of their students by doing a presentation, or ask them to send out emails on your behalf that advertise your position. That is why they're there, that is what they do, so don't be afraid to put out some very specific asks. I will say, I've had people who have really rural sites, and they say, hey, I'm sorry, Allie, but we're like 3 hours from the nearest college. Well, if it's really hard for you to, form any contacts, hopefully, I think most of you probably have gone to college or have connections at a personal institution of higher education. I would consider reaching out to your alma mater and ask them, about connecting with their students, even if they're across the country. Especially if you're willing to take on Vista members who aren't from your area, this is another really solid strategy that I know some sponsors have employed really effectively. Especially being an alum, you can really leverage that and say, look, I know for a fact for the next couple of years, I'm going to look to onboard X amount of Vistas. I would love to advertise this to your students, let them know about it. It's a great opportunity, et cetera. So a really great way to do that. Another tactic is to connect with, as I mentioned, faculty or staff who may be alums, or student government or campus clubs, and request to give a brief talk to their students about your organization. When I was a Peace Corps recruiter, one of the schools that I recruited heavily at, I did the usual, career fair, and I did the usual information sessions in the evening, but I still felt like I wanted to do more when I went to a campus, so I actually contacted the local Peace and Justice Club on campus and said, hey, I'm with the Peace Corps, I want to talk to your students, and it was a student-run organization. I just said, hey, can I come to your next meeting and give you like a 20-minute presentation? And so they invited me, and I ended up recruiting 3 people from that one meeting. So again, you never know, how many people, what touch points you could find. Another tip is to connect with departments that align with your organization's programming and ask to give class talks or just send email messages to their juniors and seniors about your opportunity. So for example, if your program, again, I'll use the recruiting mentors for, at-risk youth, consider reaching out to, say, the School of Social Work or the School of Education. You might find some majors there who are really interested in doing that aspect of the work. And of course, every institution offers a career fair and or a community service fair. If you are able to do just one thing in a given year, this should be it. Even if the career fair, most career fairs are in the fall, and you're probably not even thinking about your positions until February, that's fine. Still go to these career fairs, actively recruit people, collect some leads, and let them know, hey, come February, I'm going to be hiring folks. So let me get your information, I'll send you an email. Another great way to get contact. All right, so depending on your campus relationships you cultivate, there are so many options, of course, for college recruitment. I could do a whole webinar just on this. But, of course, if you can't spend the time planning and marketing a standalone event, try these lower cost and lower investment strategies. Ask one of your members or a local alum or a leader to give an interview on a campus radio station and describe the VISTA experience. Bonus points if they're an alum of the college. You might not have a ton of time, so just talk to career services and ask about setting up an information table in the student union during lunch hours and just hand out info and collect, email addresses of interested candidates. And, lowest cost would be, if you're driving in the area, spend a couple hours just putting flyers of your opportunities on bulletin boards around campus. Again, the littlest of things could have still some great impact. All right, so we're moving to community recruitment. So community recruitment strategies don't really differ significantly from college recruitment strategies. It's more about finding locations for events and avenues for advertising your events. One of my favorite strategies is conducting coffee chats, where current members in your project or VISTA leaders or yourself can set up informal opportunities to meet people at local coffee houses. I recommend bringing a VISTA leader, a member, or yourself to provide an insider's view to potential applicants. You can advertise this to both potential applicants, but also current candidates who have accepted a position but yet to complete PSO. And I think you can actually double dip these kinds of events because you're basically providing an informal talk about VISTA service in general. So you can keep those candidates you have on the hook engaged, and you can, maybe get a whole new subset of interested applicants. I will say most coffee shops won't charge you if you contact them in advance and just mention that you'd like to set up, a table for a few hours and invite other people from the general public to come and join you. They're usually happy for the added business, especially if it's during slow times, like in the afternoon. Another great strategy is to contact your local farmers market and set up an informational booth. Most farmers markets obviously offer their space to farmers and producers, but they oftentimes will have what's called like an educational table opportunity, and they will charge sometimes a nominal fee. They might even make it free, especially if you specify that you're a local nonprofit looking to hire people. It's another great way to get yet a whole other subset of potential applicants. And of course, finally, most libraries allow for community events, and usually for a low fee, you can reserve a room to give a public presentation. And this would be a great way to just give an informational session about your opportunities and VISTA in general. They may even help assist with advertising the program. So again, all sorts of really good strategies to sort of put out there. I'm just going to pause for a second because I saw a point from one of our persons online, from Brittany, just saying, FYI, at a lot of campuses, you need approval to hang flyers. She's absolutely correct, and I sort of glossed over that one. Of course, you still would want to contact career services and find out, what's the avenues for posting flyers, because you can't usually just go to a campus and throw stuff up. But again, it could be a very easy way if you just simply don't have the time to set up an event. So thank you for that clarification. Okay, and then we'll go to the next slide of community recruitment strategies. So last but not least, just some more ideas, and again, way more of these ideas are in the Guide to Recruitment, but leverage your local AmeriCorps alums chapter if you ever need assistance. Most areas do have an AmeriCorps alums chapter, and here's some additional ideas. You can reach out to your local 4-H or FFA chapter, that's Future Farmers of America, and many of these have college cohorts. I especially say this for those really rural areas because I know for a fact every rural county in the U.S. has either a 4-H or an FFA chapter or both. And again, these are influencers. Another fun thing would be to do what we call a story slam, which is sort of like an open mic night at a cafe. You can invite VISTA members, leaders, and local alums to tell quick 3-minute stories about their service, or humor stories, sad stories, fun stories, and then bring recruitment materials. I'm actually doing a webinar on telling your VISTA story next week, so hopefully a lot of VISTA members will be trained on how to do just this, just putting that out there. And of course, you can leverage your own existing community contacts to send out recruitment emails on your behalf. If your organization has a newsletter, include recruitment messages in your newsletter, even if it's just going to, like, your donors. If you conduct fundraising, just bring recruitment materials with you. Again, you never know who may have a niece or a nephew or one of their grandkids who'd be interested in serving in VISTA. And for our last couple of slides, for what to do next, I'm just going to turn it over to Anne.
Thanks. All right, so we've given you a ton of ideas for recruitment. Now, here is a handy checklist to keep in mind as you plan your event. I can't stress enough how great the VISTA Outreach Hub is. This is your one-stop shop for everything from links to order brochures, downloads of our Spanish language brochures, editable flyer templates, back orders of the VISTA Review newsletter, and so much more. Wherever you go, bring gear. Wear your organization's brand, and always bring printed information about your current or upcoming vacancies. The key is to directly encourage folks to go to the AmeriCorps application portal on My AmeriCorps and apply. If you're hosting an event at a college campus, ask your contact there to send reminder emails to students about the event to generate more interest. And in terms of next steps, of course, we know that you are strapped for time, so if anything else, here are some few short-term things that you can do in the next couple of weeks to get started. If you have 15 minutes, start searching for colleges in your area, and then send outreach emails to cultivate contacts there. Check out the link to do a targeted college search, and the template links to where we have a draft email template for you to use for cold calling college campuses. The other link takes you to a site where you can search for key contacts at colleges and universities across the U.S. And once you've established a contact, do a recruitment visit and try to combine as many events as possible.
Excellent. And before we turn it over to Jenny, who's just going to do a quick, actually, I'll do the evaluation slide. But just before that, Liz just put in the chat box the link to the SurveyMonkey that you all can sign up for your recruitment kit. And if you've already gotten a recruitment kit and you've totally just gone out and done a ton of cool stuff, you can order another one. So just put that in there. But before we just go to the Q&A, we hope you take a few moments to share your feedback on this session with the quick poll on the right side of the screen. So we want to know what you thought. On the right side, you'll see the quick poll. Please take a moment to answer the questions, and we definitely want to improve this webinar with your input, and it really helps us. So you'll see the poll there, and we'll leave that open as we open this up to Q&A. So Martina, for those folks on the phone, if you could give us instructions on how to submit questions via the phone, that'd be great. Otherwise, you guys can put your questions in the Q&A box.
Thank you. At this time, if you'd like to ask a question by audio, please press star followed by 1. Once again, to ask a question, please press star 1. One moment for our first question. Once again, to ask a question, please press star 1.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting for folks to call in, again, we put the recruitment kit link in the chat. And if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A. We'll be sure to answer them. I see one question here. Let me pull that up. You're just freezing on me. Okay. Can you read the Q&A, Anne?
Sure. Mary asks, we have 3 positions to fill for April. Any suggestions for best places to recruit non-students? To clarify, we're not excluding students, but think the pool will be smaller because students are still in school in April. We're definitely still targeting recent grads.
Awesome. Yeah, April's tough, as you can see, because, you know, you're definitely not going to get college seniors, but I would still reach out to the campuses and try to do some recruitment because there may be, or I would reach out to career services my first suggestion would be to still reach out to career services and say, we have an opportunity starting in April. For those who graduated in January or recent graduates, is there a way I can reach out to them and contact them? Or is there an alumni, like, job board I can post this on? I would also say, you know, Mary, you can use postings like Idealist, and if your organization or you personally are on LinkedIn, you can actually search for people on LinkedIn and find ways to get a hold of them. If you're really struggling, you can always reach out to us directly. We do have a couple tools at our disposal. But yeah, I would say I would still reach out to folks who are, you know, located with schools. And then of course, you know, some of the community strategies that we mentioned, because you never know who's out there. And then finally, social media. Hopefully your program has a social media presence. I would definitely push some advertisements out there and ask your partners to share that, because there still may be folks who are really looking for a change in career. So hopefully that helped.
Ellie, here's another one from the chat box. How do you recommend navigating tentative deadlines from our CNCF state office? For example, when PSO dates are tentative and shifting, how would you recommend sharing the information with recruits?
Ooh, that is a tricky one. My experience with tentative dates is that they're very close to their actual date. So, you know, if you see, if there's a PSO date that's like tentative August 5th, it's going to happen within a day or two of that, generally speaking. And I don't know, Liz or Ann, chime in if you have seen otherwise. But so my advice is I would still say, look, you know, we're hoping to start the second week of August, for example. And I would just sort of, you know, fudge that as best as you can until the dates are absolute and you can have your absolute last day. And keep in mind that generally it's about 35 days before the start of a PSO that you would need to make your final selection. So, you know, to give yourself a little bit of padding, just take those tentative dates and I would buffer 40 days in front of that as your sort of drop dead date for the last date to apply. And that way it gives you some breathing room as well as the PSO. So that would be my advice.
Great. We have another one. Are there any tips to recruiting older VISTA members? So I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat box. We actually just came out with a wonderful video that is geared just to do that, to get folks over 50 to think about joining VISTA. So it's on YouTube, and you all are welcome to use it. So that is certainly one technique that you can use. I don't know if you all have anything else to add.
Yeah, actually on the Outreach Hub that we have advertised and we put in the chat box, and we can put the link to the Outreach Hub again, you can actually download all of those videos, all of our recruitment videos, including the one that, so we have a whole number of them. We have 4 videos that feature in-depth looks at VISTA projects. They're very inspirational. And then we have the 2 videos that they're short that show our members over the age of 50, all 3 of them who are serving in various capacities and sort of their experience. So you can either go to YouTube at the link listed, or again, all of this is on the Outreach Hub.
And just to clarify, there are more than 3 50-plus VISTA serving. These are just the ones highlighted on the video.
That's right. All right. Martina, do we have any folks on the line? Or are we just getting all of our questions via chat?
There are none at this time, but once again, if you'd like to ask a question via audio, please press star 1.
Great. So, yeah, we're here. We have another, 6 or 7 minutes if folks have any questions. These are, there are no bad questions, and we are, here to help. So just let us know. Okay. Oh, good. We have another question in the chat, so I'll just read this aloud. How would you recommend recruiting members for sites located in areas that are not, quote-unquote, geographically glamorous? Example, our sites in large cities or on the West Coast tend to get more applications, whereas sites in more rural areas do not get many applications. Are there methods other than college or community outreach? Yes, Marissa, so thank you. Couple of things, and of course, Liz and chime in. I would look at, specifically, I would look at the communities where those applications are and find some of those ways to advertise locally and or just sort of get the word out locally. Of course, that's a challenge, but another thing is you would be actually really surprised at how many people are interested in going somewhere that makes a difference, even if it's not the most glamorous location. So much of that is in how you market this site. Obviously, you have, I'm guessing you're an intermediary, and so you have people that are already interested in your program and they're applying to, like you said, the West Coast, for example. But a tactic that I know Teach for America uses very successfully in getting people to serve in, say, the Dakotas or in rural Louisiana versus wanting to serve in LA is that they really highlight the need and they highlight the potential impact that you could have as a VISTA member. I saw another great opportunity listing that was in really rural Missouri, so, not necessarily somewhere where anyone would want to go, but they really talked about, they sort of framed the project as like, the problem is the opioid epidemic, and we have so many kids now in the foster care system because their parents lost custody because they're addicted to opioids. And you can make a difference by, finding new mentors and finding new foster families and recruiting volunteers to help this program. So I think presenting a really compelling case. And then I'll go back to the tactic of, depending on the subject of the focus areas of these different rural placements, if one's like a health project, I would, again, go to a public health, find those public health students and say, this is your chance. Anne, do you want to, I think you probably served in a similar capacity. Do you want to just give a quick reason why you chose your location of service that wasn't necessarily in the most glamorous of places?
Sure. Just like you said, I had studied public health in school and knew I wanted to serve in some capacity doing something that had to do with public health. So when I searched for listings, instead of looking at locations, I searched specifically for Healthy Future projects, and that took me to my not so geographically glamorous site, but yeah.
So I would definitely, if geography, again, I mentioned the example of Hawaii. There was one Hawaii position that got a ton of applicants. I'm sure we can all guess why, because a lot of people want to go there. But I also see, just looking at the data of all the opportunity listings, ones that are in really random areas, but it's just really well worded, the mission and the impact someone could have. And so I would target it based on the job. I will say for myself, when I applied to VISTA, I specifically wanted to serve in a tribal project out west. And so I picked a really rural site in rural New Mexico because I was most interested in the project description. So that could serve you really well. That would be my advice. Okay, we have a few minutes left, so any further questions? Again, I will say, go to our Outreach Hub. I'm going to add a link to our direct inbox. If you do have any questions after today, you can always reach out to us at vistaoutreach@cns.gov. And I want to just offer our services. Oh, great. And someone would like the URL. I'll also put the URL for the Outreach Hub So here's our, again, our inbox is vistaoutreach@cns.gov, and if you ever have any questions, if if we hang up and you're like, oh man, I forgot to ask about this, just email us. We answer this. And then the URL for the Outreach Hub is pretty easy to remember. It's nationalservice.gov/VistaOutreach. So I just posted that in the chat as well. So, yeah. Jenny, did you notice any other questions in the Q&A that we're missing? Okay, it looks like we've gotten a hold of everyone. Last call for any last questions. Otherwise, we'll give you your minute back. And thank you all for taking the time to chat with us today. Hopefully, you learned something new. Hopefully, you got some clarity on just where to start with this whole recruitment business, because I know it's very overwhelming. And I just want to wrap it up by saying thank you to each and every one of you. The work that you do is so important. It is so valuable. You are truly the champions in the field that make this program run, and you are the ones that are, getting the right people. You're the ones who are keeping the mission alive. So we honestly cannot thank you enough. And just know that we're here for you. So we're here to support you. We're here to help you. As I said, you have our email address. You can reach out to us. And I hope you join us for part 2 next week at, marketing your opportunity listing, getting the right candidates for your opportunities. So this was going to go really into just very easy marketing tactics and techniques on how to spread the word. But of course, in the meantime, if you guys are, like, look, I'm desperate, I need some help, you know how to reach us. So thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing from you.